Viewer question on manifesting an SP. My name is Lucian Francois Mateo St. James. Thank you for tuning in to this transmission of the Ministry of Assumption Absolute. Your assumption is the absolute, and I'm here to encourage you in knowing with empowered conviction the truth of your transcendent divinity. Q&A. I love this. So drop your questions. I usually keep my email pinned to the videos, but if you got a question, drop it in the comments or send it to me over email if you don't want it to be a public deal. So I'm excited to get into this. And I actually have a structured response because a lot of times I just go. I got it all inside and I just go. But we're gonna break it down. I'm gonna answer this question on 3 levels. So the question being, quote, as much as I listen to videos like this, I don't understand them. My ongoing question is about not tolerating no contact with a person you actually want contact with. So we're asking a question like, do I have to tolerate no contact with the person I want contact with? So back to the quote, how do you let it be? This is in response to the Identity Alchemy Masterclass that I posted, which I would suggest that you watch. How do you let it be and still get what you want in this case? So how do we let it be and still get what you want in this case? Which, if you don't watch the rest of this video, they're the same thing. Like, those two things are the same thing, but we're going to dissect it on 3 levels. You mentioned a toxic friend. So do you believe a toxic person can show up different when your thoughts about them change? And I don't remember mentioning, I remember talking about my ex. But as I said, like, especially longer videos, I'm just going. So I don't remember quite what I said, but I will answer that question directly. So we're going to answer this on 3 levels. One, and get a notebook, take some notes on this. Point of origin. So we're going to talk about, like, where are you looking at yourself as an individualized expression of the all that is, or are you looking at yourself as this 3D limited ego person that is doing things? Like, whatever you're doing, full stop, whatever you're doing in order to manifest this person, like, you already screwed up. Because if you're doing something for a specific effect, you're saying, I don't have that effect, and you're only ever going to get more of what you already have. Or my favorite quote from Neville Goddard for life makes no mistakes and always gives man that which he first gives himself. So if you're doing something to get something, you're saying, I don't have it, and you're only going to get more of what you already have. So are you viewing yourself from that perspective as the person who needs to effort and has to make something happen? We're always talking about attachment in this space, and attachment being a fixation on a particular outcome in the 3D, meaning and I talked about this in the Identity Masterclass, the Identity Alchemy Masterclass. Are you insisting that the 3D change in order for you to receive the internal effect? Because if you are insisting that the 3D changes, what you're saying is that I'm coming from a place of lack. I don't feel as though I have that thing. Or, really what we're talking about is a feeling of fulfillment, like, all of the 3D is really just God coming to know God's self through God's own desire. Or, not even talking about the word God, but source. I'm talking about source. I refer to it as God because, like, that's just, I think in terms of divinity. I went to seminary for 2 years and dropped out because I was like, oh, this is like all the same thing. And I don't want to, like, start like a church based on like a little tiny bit of the all that is, because it's all one thing. And there's certainly not somebody in the sky who's angry at me telling me what I can and can't do. That's not. But I did learn a lot from the experience. So I think in terms of God, but where are you seeing yourself? So, everything, like, I was born, as I say, I was born on the day of the material inducer. Get your stuff, get your SP, but those should be, as those things come to you, they are expressions of your power, attuning your attention and awareness to certain aspects of, what could be considered a 3D experience. There's certain aspects of you experiencing yourself as the all that is. Out there is not the all that is. That is the separation. That is the illusion. But through the illusion, we come to know more and more and more of ourselves, because infinity is happening. There's no limit to what can happen, what is happening, but we are limited in what we can experience. So then in our experience, it's a matter of the tuning. So answering that on 3 levels. Point of origin, I'm going to give you an anecdotal answer, meaning I'm going to give you my personal experience with this question. The way that I understand things in terms of conscious creation. And then we're going to talk about integrating that, which is probably really going to be answered in the anecdotal response part of this, but we will get to all 3 aspects. So, and I actually have notes prepared. Look at me. Point of origin. So, what you see in the 3D. I'm going to start with an example, point of origin, what you see in the 3D. So I always like to say in my videos that what you see in the 3D, what you see in the material reality is that's dead. I talk about it as being dead. It's not terms like dead in terms of buried, but like it's already manifest. Like you're not going to like change the script of what's already happened, what has already occurred. Now, yes, like in your memory, in your mind, you can revise because the only moment that's happening is the moment that's happening now. So like once something has occurred, you don't have to continue assigning your identity to that. But as it's manifest here, like that's what I'm saying. It's a meal that has already been cooked. And when we talk about this meal analogy, you can only cook a meal with the ingredients that you have in your fridge. So like there's the limitation there, meaning like the meal that you're seeing. So once that meal comes out of the oven and that meal is cooked, that means that like what you put into the creation of that meal that came from your fridge. Those 2 things are not separate, meaning you are in a one-to-one relationship with everything you see. Now, you don't have to continue that. If you see something you don't like, you don't have to continue. You don't have to look at the meal and say like the meal being the manifestation and say that this is all that I'll ever have. If you want to cook new things, you have to buy new ingredients, and meaning occupy a new state with different beliefs, with different, and those beliefs then coagulate into an assumption, and those assumptions then become our certainty, and our state is defined by the things that we are certain of, as well as our emotional experiences. So, with that, once the meal is already cooked, like you can't, like that's here, you can't necessarily negotiate with that, but you can go by, like you don't even have to eat the meal, meaning like you don't have to do anything with that. That can just absolutely be there. You don't need to. So essentially what I'm saying is like, the meal is not the source of anything. That's just the representation of finished ingredients that has manifest here in the 3D. Like that's it. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. So if you've manifested, for instance, a relationship where you've been abandoned, then what were the ingredients that you put into that meal? Well, you abandon yourself, or you either believe that people abandoned me, which again is still a form of self-abandoning. So that was the ingredients. You saw the meal. That's already happened, but like that's just here now. Like you don't need to do anything further with that at that point in time. You don't need to make it mean something about your worth and about what the future is going to bring, as we're typically taught to judge the 3D, to judge the external events as evidence as to what we're allowed to believe internally. So where's your point of origin? Because you cooked the meal, meaning you bought the ingredients, you put them in your fridge. The ingredients in the fridge were then concocted together, cooking, I guess, they were concocted together. You put them in the oven, and then out of that oven then is a meal that you see on the plate. But that's not at all the total, the all, the everything. That's just what's there. So we're talking about, like, okay, buy some new ingredients. There's no limit to the amount of ingredients that you can put into your fridge, meaning essentially like agree with, or I talk about, impressing into the subconscious. I don't really talk about that, but I mean, there's validity there to that perspective as well. I guess I talk more in terms of patterns of now, like what are you recognizing within the pattern of now? So, but all of that aside, so like if the meal is already cooked of the broken relationship, like those are ingredients, old ingredients, meal came out, it's here now. You don't need to do anything more with it. That's already manifest. But by the time something materializes, that's already pushed through. You don't need to do anything more with it. You don't have to agree with it, but you don't like trying to force and change. Like, okay, this meal's already cooked, but I should have added this new thing. I should have added celery to it, but now the celery's not cooked. Well, how can I change it? Like, you're not trying to change the taste of the meal that's already here. You cook a new meal, and if you want new food, then you get new ingredients. So the point of origin, are you looking at the 3D as the end all be all, and are you wrestling with that? Because you are the all that is. main, like, my message and my mission in the ministry of Assumption, absolute of personal empowerment and self-sovereignty, because I am a self-sovereignty mentor. I've admit anything I call myself, it feels incomplete, so I'll call myself a million different things because it doesn't really matter. But self-sovereignty mentor, identity alchemist, spiritual epidemiologist. The whole ministry of the mission of the ministry of Assumption Absolute is based really particularly on that quote that I said from Neville Goddard earlier, for life makes no mistakes and always gives man that which man first gives himself. That and Luke 17 through 21, or no, it's Luke 17:20 through 21. So the kingdom of God is within you, like that. I mean, that to me, that's all you need. That is all you need. So the verse being, and this is from a NCV translation. So some of the Pharisees asked Yeshua, when will the kingdom of God come? That's you asking for your manifestation. That's you asking. Now we're talking about SPs, but this could apply to anything. So when will the kingdom of God come? When is it? When is it going to get here? When will we know it? When will we see it? When am I going to experience? See that question, that human question? When am I going to experience it in the 3D? Yeshua answers, God's kingdom is coming, but not in the way that you will be able to see it with your eyes. People will not say, look, here it is, or there it is, because God's kingdom is within you. The kingdom of God is within. I talked about, fine, your kingdom of God is whatever it is that you want to experience. That is going to be personal to you. Another ministry mantra that I'm always the blah, 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 going on about is that the afterlife is here. And the afterlife being the state where you're not efforting, where you're not trying, where you're not fixing, where you're not solving, that whole paradigm of a matrix self that always has to be manipulating something around it in order to create some false and fleeting sense of safety, like that's done. I view that as really like the hell state, and the afterlife is when you realize, like, oh, through all that bullshit, I don't have to do any of that. So the kingdom of God being within. So what's your point of origin? Are you looking at yourself as the source of your experience and understanding that you are in a one-to-one relationship with what you're seeing? So if what you're seeing is no contact with that person, then you're affirming that. You're saying that, like, I'm not in contact with this person, and you're denying yourself the reality of that experience because you're not giving that experience to yourself, because you are the origin point of everything that you are experiencing. You are the one who bought the ingredients. If the meal that's cooked, back to that, is no contact with this person, how did you cook that meal? What ingredients did you put in? You bought them. Somebody else didn't put ingredients into your fridge and then cook them in and concoct them and put them and then cook them for you and then take them out of the oven and say, here's basically, here's this 3D material reality. But, we're not going to argue with a meal that's already cooked. We're going to choose different. We're going to go to the grocery store and choose different ingredients. We're going to buy different things. So again, it's not about buying things, but it's like we're going to assume a new state of self, always coming back to being source, always coming back to being the point of origin, always coming back to being an individualized, I call it IEG, an individualized expression of God, of the all that is. And when you come back to that, when you realize that, like, I am fulfillment, that I am love, that I am freedom, that I am abundance, that everything high vibrational that I can think of being, I am already that. I'm an individualized expression of that. Am I tuned to it? Is that where my attention is? And in my attention, in the predominance of your attention, that will create a state of self, a state of understanding. So in that state of understanding, and the state, like, here's the thing, all this stuff is happening whether we agree to it or not, like whether we personally believe that, like, this is the case for us. That's what's happening. So, it's a matter of, like, consciously exercising these truths, of reality creation or not. But it's not like you are, I don't need to teach you, no manifestation teacher or spiritual, whatever, needs to teach you anything, because that's just what's happening. So, kingdom of God being within you. Now, my anecdotal answer, what I have learned from conscious materialization, again, it's happening anyway. It's just a matter of if you're conscious of it. So 2025, with it being the year of the wood stake and it being a 9-year, and it being a year of personal significance for me. And then when those I related, I live in the Midwest. I wasn't in the LA fires, but when I saw that happen, I didn't even watch the news, and it still found me. I was like, some things in my life are going to burn this year. And they did. And they did. And because of the life that I was creating for myself, I mean, my whole life had to fall apart because what I was affirming for myself and this new state that I was occupying, everything I was living was out of alignment with that. I wasn't talking about like manifesting an SP or this or that or any one thing. Like my entire life was out of alignment with how I saw myself to exercise my power as an individualized expression of God. So like everything needed to fall away. And it fell away in completely unexpected ways. And it wasn't that I was like, cutting cords and doing this stuff intentionally, but like this year I went through a very major shift. A lot of things changed in ways that I could not have predicted for the better. And I won't even say for the worse, but I mean, for the unexpected. And for a period of time, I mean, it felt like for the worst. When you go through a loss of something that you've been, or several things that you've been used to for a certain period of time, and it's created that safety and that certainty, those things might not even feel good anymore. But when you lose them, you do feel that gap in this is what I was used to, and this is what I'm experiencing now. So, went through a lot of shifts this year, and it left me in a period. It didn't leave me in a period, but after all of that, I took some time for deep solitude, very, very deep solitude. I didn't associate with anyone. I took time away from my work, like all forms of work. And I just spent a lot of time with myself, coming to understand how I created that old state and that old lifestyle. I mean, it was a full shift. Everything, every single domain that you can think of life, like that changed for me this year. I was all for again, now I see that it was for the better and it was what I was affirming. But that bridge of incidences, oh, walking across that bridge, felt like, I mean, you're walking through just like two tiny little lanes and everything's on fire, and you're hoping that you don't catch, and maybe you do, but you make it to the other side, you don't die. But I took some time away, and I wasn't focused on anybody else. I wasn't focused on romantic interest. I wasn't focused on friends. I wasn't like a support system. Other people were not my focus. I was just spending this deep, deep time by myself, and it was so good. And in that, I learned to become my own best friend, to become my own lover, to become the things that I was seeking in other people, that led to really, in my early 20s and mid 20s, just a series of destructive relationships, very painful relationships, broken relationships. And I took this time that I had in solitude, again, it was weeks, long time, just by myself, like not talking to anybody. I mean, I got used to, talking to different aspects of myself, basically, deep solitude. And I just learned to fall in love with me, with my own company and what I had to offer myself, the different aspects of myself that I wanted to develop and to grow, and recognizing the shadow and coming into contact with the parts of myself that I was not proud of, and talking to the inner child. I mean, all of this stuff, all of this is just very, deep integration work. Through none of that and again, this is, I mean, what some people could call a lonely period. I was not lonely, but it was a period without contact with other people. I wasn't focused on friends. And my background with this, the reason I'm answering this way, is that I've never had supportive friends before. I'm not going to say that like the people that I experienced before were bad people. They just were not. I mean, I wasn't in alignment with myself. I didn't understand myself. And I was, essentially I was that person who like went to the grocery store starving, for contact. So the people that I had represented that state of deprivation, represented that state of, I was trying to combine starvation and deprivation, represented that state of starvation and deprivation. So like, what did I see? People that it felt like, I mean, it really, they were lower level friendships, based on lower level concerns, based on really a mutual shared sense of self-destruction, if I'm talking about my mid-20s. And like, that was what I came to understand out of friendship. And then like after that, I might have had some people, few and far between, but nobody I really felt very, very deeply connected with. So when I cut everything off and essentially like went to my own cave, friends weren't a priority. But as I essentially, and I wasn't like manifesting friends, I wasn't like affirming, or romantic interest, I wasn't like affirming like, I have this and I have that, or these people love and adore and support me. But I became the essence of all of that. I became like, what do I want in a best friend? God, it's weird to even say that, but because that's not how I was thinking. But essentially, like understanding, yeah, shared interest, shared maybe like in art, having similar artistic dispositions or preferences in terms of media. As you're saying, like I wasn't even really thinking about other people. So anyway, fast forward through all that, coming out at the end of the year, back reintegrated into my life, doing my work and living it, loving it, learning. Um, I have like a group of people around me that I never, ever, ever would have expected. And it came about very organically. It came about just so naturally. In all my friendships before, I mean, and these were shitty friendships. That was the thing. And romantic relationships, because I'm talking about all domains here. I was doing the chasing. I was the one who was always reaching out, or things always felt weird, or I even felt like, do I have the right to ask this person? Do they want to hang out with me? I mean, there was just that tenseness there. And now, everything's free flowing. Again, I have a group of amazing people around me that I met in a variety of contexts that I wasn't looking for, but because I finally loved and accepted and came into harmony with myself and stopped apologizing again for my very different types of artistic tastes, and started just admitting to myself and being so happy. It's not that I ever had a problem really with like self-acceptance, but I think that maybe the problem was just like I was always looking for like somebody else to tell me that it was okay for me to accept myself. Like I have these very weird artistic tastes, and I was waiting for, okay, well, no, but nobody seems to understand. Like I'm talking on a basic level. Like I love the 80s. I absolutely love the 80s. So I've been like looking around most of my life, up until around 25, for like other people that get it, and of course nobody did. And as much as people didn't get it, then I felt more and more lonely and more isolated. And now I'm no longer like looking for anybody to reflect me back at me. But when I stopped doing that, then everything came together. And for me, my shit had to fall apart first, because I had too much of the old life and the old script. And I'm going to get to that with the third part of your question. Too much of the old life and the old script wrapped up. Like there was nothing that was going to come in that was of resonance of my new state until I was fully separated from that old state. So that's how my life worked. Um, that's not the case for all people. Like, I mean, I'm an extremist, definitely. I've lived a pretty extreme lifestyle, so it's it's not a surprise to me that everything kind of came as a cataclysm and as a flood. But for other people, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So as I started courting myself and loving myself and dating myself and accepting myself and not being focused on the outside, not visualizing even really people around me, I became the love that I was seeking because I realized it was already here. And then that began to be reflected out at me. So it wasn't about like I'm, doing all this mind work. I mean, I don't believe in a lot of effort for this. I do have, I guess, like a system of considerations, or I'll do videos where you'll see, and I'll just call it more like systems of considerations. Like, these are things that allow you to access. These kind of like removes the blocks. I'm talking about subconscious blocks, but that remove some of the blocks that our ego trains us to think in terms of what I'm allowed, what I can validate, what feels safe, what I can see. It's kind of removes, unmuddy some of that water. But I don't even really believe in the system. I believe again in considerations. So when I became that's what I started seeing. So what are you, let's say, like, what are you being? When I was being separation, when I was being the person that nobody understands, then that's what I was getting back. When I decided I understand and love myself, and I like weird things that other people aren't into, and I'm okay at that because I reflect me back to me. Then I started seeing that when I stopped searching out there and let it go. And so that's what I'm saying. Like when you asked, how do you let it be and still get what you want? Well, I wasn't in conflict anymore with that external environment. I wasn't saying, well, how can I just, because I did ask this question prior to, I mean, I asked this question all my life. I'm like, and it was just the 80s, but I have a weird 20th century taste. And it's not weird, but I have this taste that's multidimensional and is across time and is across cultures. And I couldn't tell you at all what's trending. I don't know ever what's trending. I don't watch the news. I don't know what the kids are saying. I'm not very connected to this time. So I've been looking all my life for somebody to reflect that. So like my previous question, like in my old state of self, in my 20s, or when I was feeling disenfranchised and misunderstood, I would have asked, well, how can I just like let it be that nobody accepts me, but then like still feel self-accepted? Like how do you let it be and get what you want? Well, you realize you are what you want. What you want is you. But again, that comes back to that point of origin. Do you understand that the kingdom of heaven is within? Like, do you understand you are an individualized expression of source? Because if you don't understand that, then everything else is going to be chasing, is going to be scattered focus, is going to be validation seeking, is going to be safety seeking, and all of that then is going to have a foundational root of fear. And fear, lack, scarcity is just more reinforcement that like I don't have what I want. So I mean, are you starting from a place where you understand that I am everything that can be and everything that I seek? I already have it. It's already me. And then outward and upward from that? Or are you looking at yourself as, well, how do I get what I want? Because like that's the ego speaking. That is an ego-based understand it. And I'm not saying, oh, it's ego. I'm saying like the ego being the limited personified sense of self that has certainties, that has an identity, and that identity then comes by way of, I call them ideas of experience, but has labels, has assignments, has things that it thinks it knows. And the ego is always telling you you need to do more and you need to effort more. The ego knows that it is not complete. So it is always looking outside of itself. The persona is always looking outside of itself for things to complete it because it believes that there's something to fix. But when you sit in the consciousness of the all, of everything that can be, and know that like my ego is even a product of that source, as an individualized expression of it, if you come back to that and then tune your ego awareness to that reality, that's when you can start seeing that like I am everything. There's nothing outside of me that is reflecting ingredients that I did buy and put in the oven, going back to that. But again, once it's cooked and then it's cooked, you don't have to do anything with it. You have to do anything with it. And if you don't like it, if you taste the meal and you're like, oh God, this tastes like abandonment, then you throw that shit out. And then you get new ingredients. And then, okay, so then what will the ingredients be for that? I am the fulfillment. I am the love. And then if in visualization, then I don't do a lot of that, but like if in visualization, then that means I'm already with that person. Like you're giving yourself an experience of separation from that person. And like that's what you're seeing, because you're seeing the 3D, you're seeing the meal that's already cooked, and you're thinking like, well, I'll never be able to cook anything else again. This is the only meal that can be cooked. And that's why I use even the idea of a meal, because like that can be discarded if you throw it away. I'm not talking about like ignoring the 3D. Like you can acknowledge it, but it's just like, okay, well, what else is there? Like you eat it or don't eat it, meaning like, okay, it's great or it's not great. What else is there to do with it? Because I am source. I am the cook. I buy the ingredients and I cook them, meaning you are the creator, the created, and the act of creation. So if you look at yourself as the creator and the created, well, what was the state that allowed you to be able to create that thing? If you're in a state of separation, then that is what you're going to see. And then that other person is just going to be like a representation of that. It's just going to be like a shell of that. I view the external environment as like shells, as representations that are filled with the substance that we put there. Well, what is the state of your substance? What have you determined? This is okay. If I view this person as this body, and what I'm receiving from them is separation, well, then you must have filled them with that substance. You must have applied that meaning. And through that meaning, you gave yourself that experience. And then you looked at the mirror of the shell and then said, why did they leave me? So it all comes back. It all comes back to the self. So that's the anecdotal answer. Now talking about integration with this. So write this down. The detachment is not something you do. It is something that you are. And you already know, like, here's the thing, like, you already know, first of all, you co-created this moment with me. Anybody watching, because this does not really just apply, none of this applies to, no SP coach is just talking about SPs. No wealth coach is just talking about wealth. It doesn't matter what domain, because if you're talking about reality creation, I mean, it all operates by the same principles. So you know how to detach. You have things, you're just your phone you're watching, but you have things in your environment. You've got a microwave or a fridge or a certain piece of clothing, or you've got a pet. You have something in your environment that you're not attached to. And what I mean by that, we're talking about attachment. We're talking about fixation on a particular outcome. We're talking about worry. We're talking about fear. We're talking about, like, I feel if I don't fix all of my focus on this all of the time and worry and insist on an outcome, then that thing is not, they're not going to come together. So I sit and I worry and I focus and I watch videos and I learn techniques and I did all the different journals. Why aren't they here? Because I'm doing this thing in order to attract this outcome to me. But the more that I insist, the more things that I do in order to get this thing, the more that I'm actually affirming that I don't actually have that thing. So I'm hoping all the things that I do bring it closer, but because I'm in a state of not having, that thing just keeps moving away and away and away, and I keep chasing and chasing and chasing, and now I'm hopeless, and now I'm powerless, and now I'm upset, and all this reality creation stuff just makes me depressed and upset because why don't I have what I want? And you realize that you are what you want. You have things in your house that you're not fixated about them. You're not always worried about where they are and if they're there. Detachment, the easiest way, and I've been studying this for years, that I've come to understand it, is that detachment is knowing that you have it. You're not attached to the outcome of your fridge being, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I guess it's a meal, because I kind of like sculpted this whole message around the whole meal thing. You're not like, when you leave the house, or even if you're in another room, like, is the meal there? Did I get the text? I saw them at lunchtime in the employee break room, and they didn't talk to me. I saw them out. I saw them on the train. They didn't say anything to me. Oh, it's not working. It's not working. I need to affirm more. Maybe you know what? It was that coach. I didn't like him anyway. You know, did he even really have his, like, worrying about all this other stuff? Um, it's knowing that you have it, and you know that you have it if you are it. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you own the thing and the thing is right there, you're not wondering where it is. You just know that it's there. So essentially, when you are that love, when you are the person that is in a happy, fulfilled, committed relationship, or happy, fulfilled, committed friendship, or whatever level of contact, you'd be talking about parent. I don't know what you're talking about here, but you know, my parents, my family, my siblings, you know, they love me, they adore me. It doesn't really matter what level of relationship you're talking about. When you just have it, you're not asking where it is. I mean, if you get nothing else out of this video, when you have something, you're not asking where it is. And how do you have it? You be it. Nobody else can take away what you are. But you have to tune. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have to start with that point of origin. You have to start with the realization, like, I'm an individualized expression of the all that is. I am a representation, localized, of consciousness. I am made of infinity. I am made of the galaxy. I am made of the stars. So with that, what does my afterlife look like, and how can I tune my focus to it? So if you are the love, if you are the being, if you are the abundance, if you are the peace and the clarity and the eros and all of the warm, fuzzy feelings that you're going to get when you're in contact with this person, then there is no such thing as separation from it. And then in your visual life, again, I don't talk about SPs because, and it's just because of my personal experience. So that last part of the question, you mentioned a toxic friend. So do you believe a toxic person can show up different when your thoughts about them change? I would never do that. I would never do that. Now, I'm not saying it can't. It absolutely can. You get on any other of these channels and people talk about manifesting new versions of a person that did them dirty all the time. Be something wonderful. Tom Karen talks about that all the time. I personally, I don't want anything from my past. Because again, if we're talking about shells and representations, then those people, just even in my mind, on an association level, those people in my mind were the shells of representations of substance that was coming within, and that substance was filled with dependency, with abandonment, with low self-worth, low self-esteem, and that shell then just reinforced all of that, like just mirrored that substance back to me. So like, I don't want nothing from the past. I don't want nothing from the past. Marcus L. Klein talked about, in a recent video he posted, and I really love this definition. He said that abundance is knowing that when I lose something, I have two more things coming to replace it, and those two things are 10 times better. So like that's the framework that I live by. Like I am never like manifesting a new version of like that ex that left me or did anything like that, or that friend that I was in addiction with. I'm manifesting a new version where we're like both clean together, because that's what I'm saying. Like if that's what I want, then like I could be that for myself because I am source. And then, yes, probably through a natural series of events, I'm saying I manifested this like wonderful friend group, this wonderful support group in a variety of different contexts. Like I wasn't even looking for it, simply because I started being that for me. Like I wasn't even focused on what was going on out there. Out there, somebody would have said, like, man, you're, and I did have people say, like, aren't you like lonely? Like, what's wrong with you wanting to spend all this time with yourself? And like that was just a different thing. They just didn't understand what I was on about. I mean, I was learning to be with myself in a totally different new way. And of course, reality reflected that because it had to. So, can it happen? Anything can happen. I can't tell you what can happen in your life. But for me, every person that or experience that I have been through that through some way or another left, I believe was there to show me an aspect of myself to transcend, not to transcend it. And then like, because I've been through like some horrific shit. So I don't want new versions of old shit. I want the next version of the new shit. And I know that new shit won't be permanent. That's going to be here for as long as it reflects the state that I'm occupying. And then as I shift states, like that stuff is either going to shift with me or it's going to leave. And that's because I'm not clinging. When we're talking about attachment, we're talking about I'm clinging to an outcome, but the outcome is the effect. The outcome is the 3D. So the integration of all of this being like when you give it to yourself, because you are the point of origin of all things you experience, you're not wondering where it is. You're not wondering, okay, well, like uh where's my bed? It's in your bedroom. Like that's a knowledge, it's a certainty that you have. So the certainties that you have about yourself and about the world are the things that you're going to see in your life. And you can be certain of a million things. Most of us are just certain that we're going to be left. We're certain that things aren't working out. You see, like certain you're in no contact with this person. And then whatever emotions come as an experience of that, you're certain of the fact that like I'm having these emotions because I'm in no contact with this person. You're talking about tolerating things. We're not creating a life where we're tolerating things. We're not tolerating anything. If you're creating a life where you're tolerating something, you're saying like I have to be okay with not getting what I want. And like that's not it. That's not it. You should have every single person here as an individualized expression of the all it is should have everything that they want. But what you see as an effect is going to come when you take responsibility as the first cause, or as Neville Goddard would say, as the operant power. So you give yourself that experience with this person that you're talking about. You give it to yourself visually. You give yourself the emotions that would come as a result of that. You give yourself the self-concept, meaning like I am somebody who is in a happy, fulfilled, committed, whatever type of relationship, with this person, or we share mutual interest, or whatever it is that you're wanting out of that. You give that experience to yourself, and you're not looking out there, because every time, and I know this from experience, every time you look out there, you're affirming that you don't have it within. So you be it. So the way that you asked, like, tolerating, like if you're tolerating something, you're saying I'm in a state of not having what I want. And because you're in that state, that's exactly why you're seeing a representation of that which you don't want.